Up now, we got Benoît Quenaudon. Yeah, all right, I got it. From Square in Waterloo, coming all the way from Waterloo. So take it away, Benoît.
Hi, everyone. So I'd like to talk about how to apply the Rx best practices to your architecture. And this is not how to use Rx. This is more things I've noticed, like some rules that can be applied to the coding that make things much simpler, more safe, and easy to test and review. And I'd like to share them with you. And to do that, I will first talk about side effects isolation. And to do that, I will walk with you through some code I had to refactor a few weeks ago. So this is a true story. So we have a profile view, a navigator, which is to change views, a name view, with, like the profile's name, an app services that would be used to fetch or update data, and a name subject that will be really useful in a few slides. So first, we bound to the name subject. Every time there is a new name, we fetch the profile, and from the profile, we fetch the prefix. If the name is empty, we just pass nothing, and if it's not, we merge it with the prefix. And in the subscribe, so we update the name view. Next, we bind again to the name subject, but this time to see if we have or not the need to set the hint. And why do we need to do that? Because the hint grows the view in width, so we don't want to stretch the view if it's not needed. True story. And so then we fetch the profile, and we need to populate the profile, which is just kicking the name subject, so passing the name to it, and then we render other things from the profile. Then let's say the user on a dialog set the new name they want to be set, which called the setName method, which in itself kicks again the name subject. But that's not all, because now we want to sync with the server, so we send it through the app service, and then based on the response, we either go to an error screen, or we kick again the name subject. And I think you noticed name subject is quite popular in the code. And so to really understand how crazy the code is, let's go through it. So first, we have the two name subject, but nothing is passed through the stream, so nothing happens. So we get a profile. We populate the profile, and it goes to name subject. So first, we switch on it. We fetch the profile, the prefix. Then we check if the name is empty or not. Update the name view. Again, for the same with for the hint. Then we go back to populate profile, and we render other things. Now, let's say the user set a new name. We kick again the name subject, which goes through the same process. And why do we do that first before passing it to the server? Is because we want to give instant feedback to the user saying, you change your name. And we are kind of optimistic, saying the server should not be, there is little chance that an error will be back from the server. Then we update the server, and if it's invalid, we go away, we show an error message. And if it's not, we kick again the name subject, because every time we want to check the prefix which is in the profile. And app service is bound to local storage, so it's not really going to the network every time, but it's still, as an abstraction, going away. And that means that if the profile changes, we get a new profile, which is happening right now. So we populate the profile again. Name subject get kicks again. This is crazy. And so this is how the code was. There was no test. There was no presenter. I'm not surprised. So it will be really hard to presenterize. And there is another way to look at this code, is where does the side effect happen? To me, side effect, I don't think it's the true definition, but anyway, if you read or write something that is not in the scope of your function, so parameters or new created object, you're doing side effect. And let's classify those. First, when we read from the naive subject, I call that a read side effect because it's something the view cares about, and we only read from it. When we call app service, this is a business logic side effect. Then when we set the text of the name view, it's a writing side effect because you update the view. And then the same. Naive subject is a reading. We update the hint, so it's a writing. App service to fetch a profile is a business logic. And populate profile is a writing because we just render the profile. But in this writing side effect, we kick a reading side effect. Then same in this side, the set name. We read business logic and read again. And so you see that we do different kinds of side effect at multiple places, and this is a bit crazy. So now let's see how I try to refactor this. This is profile view remix. And first, I want to create a few classes to model my data in a more easiest way, so I'd be able to pass things through a stream. First, I want to model what can be kicked from the view, which is the event seed class, and inside there is the edit name, which is when the user updates its name. We have result, which is the result of a business logic side effect. So we have when we fetch the profile, we wrap it into a profile result. When we update the name, and if the update of the name has led to an error, we get the name invalid object. And I do the whole thing into one class, which is result, in order to pass it into one stream. So every result will be able to go through one stream. And then we have just a basic view model that the view would be able to take to render the view. And the view model should be sufficient for the view to render anything. If you need to, in order to render something, you need to fetch some other data, something is wrong, you need to put that payload in an earlier step inside the stream. So we have some stuff we don't care about, and the prefix name that I create a small class for, prefix name, and then we compute just to render the name. So inside the profile view, we create a publish subject of events that will just pass event 2 when we want to do stuff. Then we'll react on the events, and at the end, we want the view model to render what we want. And inside this, here we don't want to think about anything. The hint is that, the name is that, and the rest of the profile is what should be. So because event is a sealed class now, we can just do a basic when statement. If it's an edit name, we update the server. And based on the response, if it's valid, we wrap it into a name valid result. If it's not, we return name invalid. And we also navigate away. So it doesn't really matter if what we emit here. But if you remember, the profile view wanted to give instant feedback to the user saying you updated your name. And with this code, it does not because it goes first to the server. So we just start with a name valid wrapper. Then there is also the profile that needs to be fetched. So we just merge the event stream to the profile one that we wrap inside a profile result. And here we need to, from those results, update the view model. So we pass this to the scan method. We give it a default view model. And then we have a by function, which is the previous view model, the latest result, and we just update the view model using that result. So if the name is valid, we don't care about anything in the view model but the name inside the prefix name. So that's the only thing we update. We don't want to touch anything else. We don't need to fetch the profile again to see if the prefix changed or what. Name invalid, it's not really important, so we can return the view model here. If we have a profile result, we just update everything. Then when the user come back from the dialog saying, I want to send a new name. We just pass a new event to the event streams. And that's it. It's about the same amount of code, but I want to show you how I think it's much easy to resonate about. So first, there is the event stream, but nothing is kicked in, so we do nothing. The profile is fetched. We go inside the reducer, and we update the view model. And inside the subscribe, we just render it. That's it. There is no name, subject, kick, whatever. Then the user wants to update its name. It goes through the event. We push it to the app service. But before that, because of the start with, the first event that is emitted is name valid. Same, we go into the reducer. We update only the name inside the prefix name without touching anything else, and render again. Now, the app service set name gives a response, so a new event is emitted. If it's invalid, we go away, but we don't really care here. We have a valid name. We wrap it. Again, we update the view model, subscribe and render, and that's it. So when we now think about side effect, type of side effect, we have the event at the top, which is a reading. Then we update the name, business logic. We fetch the profile, business logic. And at the end, we just render the view model, writing. And that's all we have. That means that where there is no side effect thing, everything is kind of pure, which is you have a function. Whatever you pass inside this method, the result will be always the same, which is really easy to test. And that's the beauty of it. So let's see now how we can take that stream and architecture our app so we can have something decoupled from the Android system. The event was a reading, which is the view needs to take care of this. At the bottom, we have a subscribe to render the view model. The view needs to take care of this, but everything is in between is basically, something we can take out of Android. We don't need to know anything about this. And this is, of course, what we'll put inside our presenter. The name is not important. It can be a view model. It can be whatever. It's not in Android. That's the point. And so how to pass one stream to the presenter and how to get one stream from the presenter is what we're going to see now. So there is many ways to pass the events to the presenter. First, this is an option, still true story. If we make the presenter a consumer of event, that means we can subscribe using the presenter from the event stream. But that means we need to override the accept method, which is every time there is an event, this callback is called. But there is a few problems. First, when we want to subscribe to the event stream, we need to literally subscribe to it. And there is no stream that we can subscribe to get the view model from this. This is one problem. This means we need to create another stream somewhere. And inside the accept method, even though we had an observable of events and we wanted to play with it, now we get event object, which is back to non-reactive world. So there is no flat map. If we wanted to go back with the stream, we would need to do observable just or stuff like this. And this is close to this. Here we have an observable of int. We want to multiply every entry by 3 and print it. And this is not something you would see in the start guide, Rx, whatever. Because inside the subscribe, we subscribe again. And that's wrong, because observable should be lazy until nobody's consuming them. But now, even though there was nothing in the first subscribe, we already consumed the 1, 2, 3. So option B. let's pass the observable of event to the constructor. I like it quite a lot. And inside the init, you can just do your thing with events. The call site would be, we just pass the events to the presenter. And we could subscribe later to get the view models. Option C is similar. Instead of passing it to the constructor, we pass it to a basic method. The call site is basically, instead of the constructor, we call some function and pass the events. Nothing fancy, all are good. And now, how to get the view models back to the view. We could have just a view model method inside the presenter, call this inside the view, subscribe to it. I like it too. Option B would be to make your presenter unobservable. So you have a subscribe actual, which is called every time you subscribe on it. That could work. Observable is a heavy class, so if you really need everything inside it, okay, otherwise it might be overkill. That's why we have the option C when you make the presenter observable source, which is an empty interface with only the subscribe method in it. And the problem is that the only subscribe method we got is we can only pass an observable to it, which means the call site will have to override everything. And in order to bypass that, you could wrap your presenter using the RxJava library, which makes it unobservable, and then you subscribe to it. But I think there is one more way to do this, which is mixing everything we saw. If we didn't think of the presenter as a class, it will be just a method to which we want to pass events and get view models from. And this method signature is actually, there is an object inside the library that does this, which is observable transformer with the apply method. You give an upstream, you get the source, the observable source for the downstream. And if we rename everything, this is exactly what we want. And this is really nice only if you have a one-on-one between your viewer and presenter, including the lifecycle. And we'll see why. And what I really like as well is the call site is in the same order as the logic is happening. So we have the events at the top, then presenter, then we render. Testing is also really nice. It's so simple. You call test, you get a test observer, you pass events to the event, and just as said that a view model has been emitted. There is no trick to do it, it's just easy to test. But so config changes is also something we have to deal with. And the difficulty is that if the presenter of the view model has a lifecycle longer than the view, the stream inside the presenter cannot be bound, cannot start from the view. Because every time the view, there is a rotation, for instance, the view gets destroyed. If the source of the stream gets destroyed, the stream terminates. So we need something in the presenter that will hold a stream from the beginning. So we create a publish subject, which the view would pass events to. And then inside the view model method, we would return view models from our field events. And so because after rotation, we want the view to bound back to the presenter and get the latest object, we'd want to replay one. So you have the latest created object will be emit again. And auto connect 0, so the presenter stream is not bound to the view lifecycle, which means the presenter would create its own stream from the beginning, and the view will be just either passing events or subscribing to view models. Whatever happens to the view doesn't affect the stream in the presenter, so if you have network call, cached view model, everything is in place, and when the view binds back, everything, the current business logic would just be updated. And the call site would be something like this. You would first need to listen to the view models before passing events. Otherwise, you might you might miss emitted view models before you can react to them. So we have the view and the presenter. And I think Android messed with us because on the software side, and the same for the hardware, the writing and the reading in the view is at the same place. So it's really easy for us to mix them together, but I think they should be separated. The presenter is business logic, but the view is actually two things. As I said, reading and writing. And when we did the refactor earlier, it looked like this. We start at the reading. The data goes down to the presenter, goes down to the view. The business logic is not going back to the view to ask, oh, by the way, what's this view value? We don't do that. The writing is not saying, OK, can you fetch again the profile to do something? We don't do that. If you don't have any business logic, you could skip it if you want. But again, if you want to render a view model, this should not kick a reading. And this is the unidirectional data flow. The data has only one way to go, and this makes things much more easier to think about. So that's what we have. So let's see if we can add a new feature. So let's say the user can now update its avatar. And how would we do this? First, we would need a new event from the view saying a new avatar has been set. We pass it a picture. In the view model, we would have just a new avatar UI, which we would render using Picasso to just update the view. On the view side, that would be the only thing we need to add. And in the presenter, now we have a new type of event. We call the service, change the avatar, we get the response. You could do the same for the set name. You could handle error differently, but that's not the point today. We wrap the avatar result. If we have an error, we wrap it as well. And in the reducer, we just update the avatar UI inside the view model. We don't touch anything else. And for the error, you do something else, whatever. And that's all we had to do. We didn't. So first, the architecture forced us to separate concerns. We don't mix read-write business logic. Everything is at its own place. And because now the presenter is out of Android, you could not mess up doing like business logic, calling back the view to get more data. If you need those data, you need to put them in the event. We didn't change the existing code, which is really nice. It should be easy to test. You add just a new event, you check that the view model has been updated properly. And even as a reviewer, because there was just a few lines added, a new type of event, a new property in the view model, everything is easy to review. And that's why I really like it. So don't forget, isolate side effects, have only one way for the data to go, and immutate everything. I didn't talk about this, but don't mutate things. Just everything is an object, immutable. Create a new one if you need to change it. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoît. We have about 5 minutes for questions, so if anybody has any questions, I'll bring the mic over.
So I saw you subscribe to view model. So in view model, you had an avatar and name. For example, it's a complex view, and you have 10 different stuff to update. Is it good to subscribe to whole view model, not separately to items?
So I like to have only one subscribe, and then you can organize your subscribe differently. Maybe have just render. I would just create multiple methods that would be called from inside the subscribe, instead of having multiple subscribe. Something we do sometimes is, on the view, we would do, instead of subscribing to the view model directly, we would split the stream. Let's say I only want to react on the name. So I would do view models, filter name or map name, and distinct until changed, and then do something to render it. But I like it to have it at the same place, so you don't have to switch between different location on the code.
Hi, first of all, thanks for the great talk. And I'd like to ask, because I really like the concept about view reading, then the presenter, then view writing. But my question is, how, if the presenter is separated from the view, how are you sure when the view is called by the presenter, the view is actually there? Because you mentioned the lifecycle events, and if the view is separated from the presenter, that means there is a possibility that when the presenter tries to give the information to the view won't be there because of a configuration change or something.
So the thing is, first, in the presenter, there was no subscribe, which means if the view doesn't subscribe, nobody's subscribing to it. But we had autoconnect, which was kind of automatically giving life to the stream. But we had the replay one, which means every time a new view would subscribe to the presenter, we would just emit the last view model. So even if there was, even if we would get multiple network calls coming back, it will update the view model every time. But at the end, when the view binds back, it's just the latest updated view model that we passed on. So the view doesn't miss anything.
Thank you.
Just to continue the previous question, what if your view have a view state saving mechanism? Do you use them at all with this architecture, or your view model is like a source of truth and it always configures the view as it needs to be configured?
I would try to make it so that there is only one source of truth, but if you need to store state in the view, I would be very careful with this, but...
So simple example, like, I don't know, edit text automatically stores it, but let's say you have like a custom edit text or whatever that stores the entered thing. Like in this architecture, would you store it in the view model, or will you let the view do the view thing?
I would always think if there is a configuration, like if the screen rotates, and if I want the data to be as same, I would just put everything in the view model. If I don't care, I could put in wherever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Thank you again, Benoît. Best code slides in the biz. Those were amazing.